And we're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt. I'm Corey Munson, filling in for Aaron Castro tonight, who's got the night off. Coming to you live from Iowa, I've got our regular guests, as always. We got Victor over in New York, Josh hanging out in Denver, and our favorite pinch hitter, we got Liam up in Vermont. How's it going, guys?
Woo! Awesome!
Going good.
Good to hear. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, we do this every single Monday night. We're live on YouTube here, and we discuss news and rumors from Major League Rugby, the United States Professional Rugby Union, and it's a chance to discuss the issues, hear from league and team leadership, and check in with our friends from across the U.S. rugby scene. So, with all that in mind, Victor, what we got going on tonight, my friend?
Well, guys, we're going to be talking about a great night that happened last Saturday in Glendale, Colorado, in the semifinals of the Major League Rugby Championship, with Seattle Seawolves taking down hapless San Diego Legion and the home team Raptors. I thought they were hapless personally, but we'll get into
We'll talk about that earlier.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. It's all propaganda type of wording I was using. I mean, it's okay. It's the reaction you just did. That's what I want out of the people listening. Victor, hapless. What are you talking about? No, but that was the point. And so again, that, and then you got the home team, the Raptors, finishing well at home versus the Warriors. Of course, we got a couple of MLR 2019 updates. And a couple more. So with that, Josh, let me pass the word to you.
So me and Aaron both went to the semifinals. I live in Colorado, so that was good for me. Aaron travels. Aaron will also be in San Diego this coming weekend for the final. Aaron had the following to say about his trip. When it comes to Rugby Town, USA, it was an amazing experience. My first trip to Glendale to see what had been the marcation point for MLR that started over 10 years ago. As a facility, it's wonderful. The intensity of the matches was extremely high. The Seattle-San Diego match felt a bit strange, but the intensity of it and how Seattle stayed balanced in the first half, stopping the Legion from converting possessions inside their 22-meter line. For the Raptors, they led wire to wire, even though Aaron had the chance to have long conversations with Kimball Kerr and Matt Hawkins, and he also met the Skinner family with the Seawolves. He said they're great people. His experience continues to make him think that MLR will succeed as long as the people who care about rugby are willing to back it financially. The Glendale events team is top-notch, and he'll see you in San Diego. As for my point of view, considering it's the only MLR stadium I've been to, it's a great facility. It is definitely top-notch. It isn't called Rugby Town USA for nothing. It's great atmosphere for both games. The Jumbotron does help for TMO especially. It was nice to see the other teams just sit around and interact with the fans. And then the fans enjoyed themselves, and most fans had their own set of in-game traditions for each team. It was a good time all in all for me. So.
That sounds like a pretty special weekend, and this was the semifinals, I'll remind everybody. So, first ever semifinals in the first ever season of Major League Rugby. Yep. So, before we get into the actual matches, guys, I guess I just kind of thought of a question I just want to throw out to you. One of the only complaints I heard consistently over the weekend was some frustration that MLR decided to just designate locations for these games instead of following who won and who was in what position within the league. What did you guys think of those concerns? Like, should a game have been played in Seattle instead of both of them in Glendale?
Okay, let me take the word first. So, the reasoning as to why that was done, and I think Aaron talked about it in the last episode, is the amount of seating for those two facilities, both Infinity Park and Toro Stadium. Toro Stadium being the biggest one in terms of size, and Infinity Park, well, it's Infinity Park. And Josh just mentioned it as one of the. I mean, he hasn't been in too many other facilities, but top notch nonetheless. So really, it's because it's ease of access as well as the amount of people that can fit. But I mean, personally, yeah, I would have personally been better up in Starfire. But when you compare Starfire with our stadium, I understand. But I assume that as time goes on, things like that are going to change. This is probably going to be just in this early seasons are going to have things like this. But again, as time goes on, I'm sure this will be like any other league where, depending on your positioning in the ladder, you may have a home game or not. So it really all depends.
Yeah, those are definitely some good points. For the reasons that Victor stated, especially that Infinity Park has the seating and it has the capacity to host a large amount of people, and I think MLR really wanted to just put as many butts in as many seats as possible. Considering this playoff weekend is definitely expected to bring a lot more revenue than some certain points of the season have thus far. However, I think the one thing that MLR fans really missed out on them designating that one single location is the potential home field advantages that could have been had by teams like Utah, Seattle, or San Diego had the games been chosen to be played there. Because as we know, San Diego has some of the best fans, in the league. They're always out there. What are they called now? The cohort, the San Diego cohort. Yeah, or the Legion of Pigeon, if you will, the Pigeon Coop, something like that. Either way, there are some really, really good fans, and I think they could have made a difference in that really close game. Or I don't want to say close game with Seattle, especially considering the last 20 minutes of it. But it was a competitive game nonetheless, and I think it would have been really cool to see how the Seattle faithful would have reacted versus the San Diego cohort had it been in one of their home stadiums. Because I think you could tell the stadium wasn't exactly entirely full when that game was going on. You could tell it was filling up gradually as the Glendale game got closer and closer to beginning.
I will say it felt like the Seattle fans traveled maybe a little better than the San Diego fans. I think I did see a lot of blue and green during the match up in the stands, and definitely online before the match they were well represented as well. So that's interesting.
Can we talk about how ugly the Glendale Raptors uniforms are? Like those banana yellow. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think this has been mentioned enough throughout the season, but I really liked the Glendale Raptors uniforms when they were playing in the the ARC, the American Rugby Championship last season against the Huns and the Utah Selects. Those were some classy-ass uniforms, but now they got these line stuff on them. They got this weird coloration of yellow, and I just wasn't I wasn't digging it this season.
Now, of those two, they have personally my favorite is the away kit, because at least it has one color and one set of like stripes instead of the home one, which is those weird stripes, and then on the side you have that other design. It looks really strange. Also, it wasn't the ARC; it was the Major League Rugby Championship, that thing that they played before the start of the season. But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's all that will be said on the uniforms.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, all right. Let's go ahead and jump on into the matches themselves. So the afternoon was led off by Seattle facing down San Diego, and the final score there was 38-24 in Seattle's favor. So the number 2 seeded team did take that match. Josh, what'd you think of it?
It was actually really close for the majority of the match until San Diego just decided to just fall apart. They were kind of hard done by the 2 yellow cards almost back to back with Alec Barton and COC Mahoney. Seattle won the scrums and San Diego won the lineouts, which I remember correctly was the case from their first meeting. The Seawolves definitely put to rest any preseason questions any of us had. And then actually coming into this game in the last couple of weeks of the season, San Diego had actually done really well to get by with the injuries they've had to them. I know I think they really missed Botha in this game, and I think he would have helped them in the scrum. Victor?
Sorry that I started to dance after stuff for whatever reason.
Victor, do you just have like music playing in your head 24/7?
Well, I am Hispanic, so yeah.
Despacito, this is how we do it down in Puerto Rico.
No, we're good. Good. No, dude. You should have done the Macarena. I would have been happier, but that's cool. That's cool. That's whatever.
What were the 90s like?
Yo, dude, seriously. That was a good decade.
It was an amazing time where unicorns walked the earth and everyone was on drugs and happy.
Pretty much.
War flannel.
It was like it was like the 70s, but better. But anyways, going back to rugby. So again, going back to the whole hapless comment at the beginning of the show. So yeah, the game was quite close, obviously, at the beginning of the game, 10-10 by halftime. But once the Legion dropped those two consecutive yellow cards, that's it. The game was open for Seattle to do whatever they did, and they won the game again, 38-24. I personally think San Diego should have won that match, but unfortunately, yellow cards are yellow cards, and when you get two of them consecutively, and you only have 13 players instead of your 15, obviously, the opposition will find holes in your defense, which are easily to go through and score and whatever. So that's what happened, unfortunately. And of course, credit to the Seawolves, played quite well. I mean, again, I would have rather seen Legion 1, but that's what it is.
Yeah, they torqued it up for sure. They torqued it up to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Level 10 torque.
Yeah. So go ahead. Whoever wants to take the word from me.
I think it's Josh who's.
No, I think you're up, Liam. What do you think of the match?
Oh well, I'll be goddamned. I'm just misreading the layout. But anyway, this was my match of the week, as you guys, if you've read the layout, have probably saw. And going back to what Victor said, I believe one of the main reasons that San Diego saw themselves fall in this match was largely to do with those two yellow cards. Throughout the season, we've seen that San Diego is a team that when they dominate their opponents, they're doing it in terms of their passing out on the wing. They have people like Brian Matias, Sema coming out there. Peterson had himself a game, especially with the ball in hand. We saw a couple instances where he was definitely a game-breaking presence right out there on that pitch. Unfortunately, when you take two people off that pitch, that really messes with the dynamic of how they're able to recycle the ball in and out. And I think when you have something like the dreaded seawall crashing down upon you, you're obviously going to get flustered and you're not going to be able to execute your game plan the way that you want to. So I think that was a very large factor, like Victor said, in terms of how this game turned out. Now, that being said, I don't think you can downplay the fact that Seattle had some game-breaking players of their own really step up. In particular, I really think an underrated player for Seattle this season and for the MLR in general has been Peter Tiberio. The guy has game-breaking speed, and whenever he touches the ball, he does something that makes the announcer go, "Oh my God, this is amazing, Peter Tiberio!" If you guys recalled, just on Saturday night, he had that pick 5, right? I can't remember who it was off San Diego.
Dylan
Osberger, you said?
It was Dylan Audsley.
Dylan Audsley, yeah. So yeah, he got that pick 5 off Dylan Audsley and just took it to the house. I think that's the kind of presence and that's the kind of potential that he brings to every single game. And he was honestly a close pick for me to be the player of the week, but unfortunately his lack of points put up kind of did it for me.
Very good.
Yeah.
My only thought on the weekend was on the Seattle San Diego game was that good for Seattle. They I think Josh, you said it earlier that they've really put to bed any questions folks had, and yeah, I think San Diego is really surging. I think they came on strong at the right time, but apparently they just don't travel great because most of their wins, or maybe all their wins, have come at home.
They're undefeated at home, I'm pretty sure.
They are undefeated at home. I know that for sure, as are the Raptors. But, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. And maybe stamina may have had something to do with it. Maybe just the fact that they have had so many lineup changes throughout the season, and they never really gelled as a team. So when it comes down to that, the last 20 there, they just, for some reason, something wasn't clicking correctly. So in my opinion, as consistent and as good as Seattle is, and Seattle showed up and Seattle played a very well put together game, San Diego lost this game as opposed to Seattle. Seattle won it because they're good. San Diego lost it because they can be good, but they weren't for 20 minutes.
And I think we see a really similar kind of situation with the Houston SaberCats in that respect, where Houston, if you look at their point differential, it really stands out to you that they were able to score a lot of points early on in their matches, but they could just never finish in that final 40 or even 20 minutes, just like San Diego. I think the main difference in terms of how the records turned out, Houston being 1-7 and San Diego ending the season at 5-3, is I think kind of like I said, San Diego had much more potential for big plays, especially with their wings, recycling it and getting the ball down the line the way they did. Whereas I think Houston, it turned out they played a little bit too conservatively throughout the season. So while they had people like Joshua Beathy and people like Malachi Esdale who could break open the game with their runs, they didn't really get the ball into the hands of those playmakers as much as they should have. Whereas I think San Diego, they had a lot of these kind of fringe eagle players, as we like to call them, and I think that was the whole point of their offensive attacking scheme, was to get that ball into the hands of their playmakers as much as they could. And I think that that was the main difference in terms of how their records turned out. But again, a lot of the same problems, especially in the closing minutes of the game.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts on this match before we move on, fellas?
Joe Peterson.
No, dust in the wind.
Peterson's
good. I like him.
It's a shame San Diego couldn't get him in previously. Also, San Diego, you can't use your centers as flankers. I realize you had to, but you can't.
Fair enough. So that was the first match of the day, and it was a doubleheader at Infinity Park there. So that followed up the evening. That was the number 2 versus number 3 seeds, and then the number 1 seed Raptors took on the number 4 seed Utah Warriors. And as would be expected with a 1 versus 4, it turned out Glendale took that one 34-21. So Liam, how about you lead us off on some thoughts on this match?
Well, the result of this game was kind of to be expected, and honestly, I don't think there was anybody out there in the rugby universe that was predicting a realistic upset by Utah. However, I am at least happy that Utah was able to crack the 20 mark. In terms of what really lost them this game, and again, this wasn't a case of San Diego losing the game more than Seattle won. I mean, Glendale, they fucking won this game. Don't get me wrong. However, what Utah's main problems were was essentially what their problem has been all season, was they don't have a consistent offensive attack in terms of recycling and passing the ball. They rely on some pretty conservative methods in terms of slamming up the middle with their forwards, which it definitely works when you have people like Paul Lasike, who you can just give the short ball to when he gains like 5 or 6 meters every single time. However, when you have people like Lauti and Don Potty like out there in the back, I don't understand why you're not getting them the ball as much as they possibly can, because it just seemed like they were getting the ball whenever stuff was starting to break down. There was no there was no deliberate action to make sure that they were getting involved in the game plan. And I think Glendale was able to respond to that by just keeping a solid defense and allowing their wings to do what they do best, which is kind of, which is break beyond the initial defensive line. In this case, it was Utah. And, Dave Williams' crew just had their way with Utah on this one, and I'm not surprised.
Beautiful. Well, guys, continuing on from what William was talking about, but specifically talking about the Raptors. Great game, started really well. By halftime, the score was already 21-7, and that 7 actually came lucky for Utah, courtesy of a try from Tonala Lauti that ended up scoring before the end of the half. And again, the score was not 21-22, 7. And yeah, from there on, they kept going. Of course, Utah did sort of came back to make that score, put the score closer, 34-21 by the end. Mika Kruse, that kid, my goodness, what a stud.
Right.
Was almost in every tackle, helped out, passing was well. That pass to Samfig for him to score. Dang it. That kid, seriously.
Honestly, Mika Kruse has been one of the best surprises of Major League Rugby this season. At only 19 years old, I think we're definitely looking at somebody who's going to be a future Eagle, and not just that, but he's going to be an Eagle for a very long time. He already possesses the footwork and the speed necessary to actually compete at an 80-minute level and compete for those 80 minutes at an elite level. I really think Glendale's going to be able to hang their hat on him in the future, as long as a European club doesn't poach him, because that would really suck.
Well, they already got 2 players poached, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stay away from Unko is all I'm asking.
I actually think Harley Davidson has a chance. He might be small, but I think he has a very good shot at being an Eagles winger. Even though he scored, this was actually a quiet game from Harley, all in all. It was the Raptors match from whistle to whistle, and Glendale was able to capitalize on Utah's mistakes. Aaron actually mentioned this over the weekend, is Utah's game plan is get the ball to either Paul Wasike or Fetu Vanikolo and just let them run.
Yeah, they're one trick ponies, and then they let Potty and Lauti just kind of finish it up with these big game breaking runs just to get some points.
And it was actually another point he brought up is that when Paul left for Eagles duty, you could actually see some sort of offense from Utah because they were forced to have an offense. They couldn't just give it to Fetu the whole game. And another thing I noticed from this past weekend's matches, and I watched it back on the recording I made of it so I could write the article. Utah just played in an unsustainable pace in the first half, and they didn't have much to show for it. Yeah, they had their moments, but they kept shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, I've noticed that actually a lot in the league this year, and not just from the Utah Warriors, but from multiple teams, is they try to bring such a frantic pace in the beginning of the match, and it kind of sets them up just for failure in the second, whereas I feel like the team that remains, paced in the first half and is able to save some fuel for the second tends to come out on top more often than not. Unless you're the Glendale Raptors, who just puts up 20 frickin' points in each half, because, that's just a thing.
Yeah.
Well, and once again, I think you're seeing just consistency in lineup. In spite of some changes during the test window, Glendale is putting up, when they're at full strength, they're putting up basically the same squad every week, and they play very, very well together. They know where each other are. They know where they need to be to make the plays, and I'm just consistently impressed with them as a team and as an organization. They right now look like a championship team. They really do. And you know what? Seattle could surprise us. We'll talk a little more about that later on in the show. But I don't know. We'll just talk. We'll save that for a little bit. But I don't think we're going to be surprised by the outcome of the championship. I'll save that. Well, somebody's home.
I was gonna say, dude.
Yeah, no, sorry. I should turn that mic off.
I was gonna say, dang it, that was so loud.
Yeah, Evan, everybody heard you coming home. No.
Hey, Evan.
They say hi.
So, Liam, you're going to talk us through some players here, players in a play of the week. What are you thinking?
Well, so for my MLR player of the week, I went with the man of the match from the Utah-Glendale game, Sam Fig. I think anybody who was watching that game within the first 10 minutes, he put up, let's call it 1.5 tries, because I think that, although that only the first try counted, that second try was taken away due to penalty. I think he put in a whole lot of effort. But more importantly, he set the tone early in that match to make sure that Glendale was kind of sending a message saying, this is our home turf and we're going to be coming out fast. not only that, I think whenever Fig was able to get the ball in the trenches, he was pretty effective. He was able to find the gaps at a consistent rate. And honestly, he didn't take too many chances with keeping the ball. He got the offloads when he needed, and he went to the ground and trusted his teammates to ruck over when it was needed. Overall, just a really well-rounded performance. And I thought Mika Kruse wasn't too far behind, but like I said, it was his lack of points that he put up that made me choose Fig over him.
Excellent. And then also, I think you did the justice of finding a play of the week.
Yep, the MLR play of the week, we already touched on this earlier, was Peter Tiberio's 60-plus meter pick 5. I'm going to try to start making that a pretty common expression whenever that happens. He
still doesn't sound right.
Well, get over it. But either way, I believe they had to go to the video review to make sure that it wasn't offsides. But if you watch the video review, no, he was pretty onside when he made that play. He was able to kind of time. He was able to time at what point the pass was coming in, and he was able to hit the gap at just the right point to kind of take it to the house. And luckily for him, San Diego had no help at the next level to stop him, and his speed. I can't say enough about it because all season he's been turning the Jets on like in every single game at least 1 or 2 points, and it makes the announcers go crazy. And I love listening to Australian accents when they're excited.
I agree with that.
You can call me a homer all you want, but I still think Davies' try was better.
Yo, can we talk about how fast Davies is?
Oh my gosh, right?
It was comical how fast his legs were moving. Like Tiberio, he's just got these long ass strides that gets him there in 5 or 6 fucking steps. I know the feeling. But Sean Davies was just a power hamster, something like that. The way he was moving his thighs, it was entertaining to watch. And he's not the youngest of guys either.
There's always something about this smallest player on the field that he has something to prove. Like it always happens.
Scrum halves for you. They're exactly, angry little men. They're like the entire Star Wars fan base, just angry and small little.
My God, you tell me. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, Josh, you pointed out that Davies is 29. So yeah.
So not mad old, but
Well, when
he's not springing some chickens. Yeah, he's playing with Mika Kruse, so.
Yeah, and so
Will McGee is 26, I believe. So that's another superstar right there. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, that run though, that was fantastic, and I think he found speed that I literally didn't know he had. I'd never seen him move like that.
Yeah. However, I think I had to put the Tiberio try over Davies just because of the way he was able to time that pass and hit the gap. I think that took a lot of situational awareness that displays a really high rugby IQ. Davies was definitely more athleticism, and not to say that it didn't display good field awareness, but I just thought Tiberio's was just out of nowhere champagne rugby, and it was fucking tits. Yeah.
So I got one last question. Sorry, Corey.
You're fine.
Did you happen to see the TJ Perinara try this weekend?
Oh, I did.
Remind me.
Let me find it real quick. Victor, which one would you say is better?
Oh, dude. Dude, you make it really hard for me. But you know what? Is it okay? For those of you that don't know, I'm gonna explain it. So, TJ Perinara, he's a New Zealander player. He plays for the All Blacks, specifically plays for the Hurricanes in Super Rugby. So the Hurricanes were playing. Remind me, Josh. The Brumbies. Thank you, the Brumbies. They're playing the Brumbies. They're from Canberra, capital of Australia. And there was a line out. Line out comes in. The jumper comes, throws the ball to his scrum half, I believe. Scrum half passes the ball. So as he passes the ball, Perinara comes running, grabs the ball in the air, and lands in the angle and scores. So people have been calling that a Superman try. And it really looks like it. It just looks really cool. He comes so quick too. It's just like you blink and you miss him. It just goes boom, boom, and scores.
Victor, I just want to say it was really funny because as I was watching it, as I was watching the try, you were like narrating it perfectly, like synced up, like with what was going on. It was
dude, how the heck he knows?
You need to have a Netflix series where you just narrate stuff because I think it would be hilarious.
Oh, that would be great. Well,
New podcast idea.
Yo, we need to write that down, Corey.
Add it to the list.
This is Netflix and greenlit. What's your idea?
Fantastic. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about what our favorite match of the week was. Liam, what you got, man?
So as I've said a couple times already, my match of the week was definitely the San Diego versus Seattle game. I just thought it was a great display of of ball in hand and of passing, which are my two favorite aspects of rugby. Definitely some great footwork all around by people hitting the gaps. Obviously, I just think the Glendale Utah game was to be expected, and while there was some great displays of athleticism, as always from between those teams, I just think there was more. There was less of the fact that you knew who was going to win in this game. It wasn't obvious that Seattle was going to take it until about the last 10 or 15 minutes, but up until that point, it was a rugby game all the way through.
Victor.
Yep. So then, same Seattle, San Diego. I mean, that match. I mean, even what happened at the end with the yellow cards and everything. Yeah, I think I find it more memorable. Excuse me, than the Raptors Utah match. Probably because it was that close until what happened. I think minute 58, 60 almost. So because those last 20 minutes, it was all Seattle. But yeah, definitely my match of the week.
Yeah, I think we all kind of knew going in that Glendale was going to win. But while Seattle-San Diego wasn't a toss-up, it kind of was. San Diego had shown improvement. And it was close, like you guys said, till the last 10, 15 minutes. So, yeah. My match of the week as well.
And I'm right there with you. I got nothing to add. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and do a quick review of our picks from last week. So I'll lead us off with Aaron's. So Aaron had originally projected San Diego to win by 3, and I had Seattle by 3. So we were kind of opposite on that one. And it did turn out that we have 14. Yeah, Seattle won by 14. So, Josh, what'd you have for the San Diego Seattle?
I had San Diego by 5. Victor?
Yeah, I had Seattle by 12. So there you go. I was just by 2. Yeah.
Yeah, you were the closest on that one.
Yeah.
And then it looks like we all picked Raptors to win, which they did against Utah. Aaron said that they were going to go by 7, and I said they were going to go by 20. So somewhere in between there, it looks like they won 34-21, so that would be 13 points. 13-point difference. So, Josh, what'd you have for that one?
I had Glendale by 10.
And I had them by 14, so I was off by 1.
So, Victor, you're pretty much killing it. Off by 2 on Seattle, San Diego, and off by 1 on Glendale. Are you going to skip San Diego and just go straight to Vegas, or what here, man?
I don't know, because I don't trust gambling. So
well, he shouldn't go to Vegas because he'll go up to a slot machine, pull the lever, nothing will come out. Some old lady goes up to the one directly to the right of him, pulls the lever, jackpot. He was off by 1.
Seriously,
so,
there you go. Off by 1.
So you're saying if he goes, he needs to play a whole row of slots.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be, he might be 1 row off. It's hard to work out that black swan effect right there.
Well, I mean, Vegas is too far. I can always go to the casino up in Queens or Atlantic City up in New Jersey.
Fair point.
There's that casino in Yonkers too. I'm pretty sure, isn't there?
Oh yeah, you're right. That's that one.
Yeah, I was like right across the street from there during the Rooney match. That was dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah, I remember. I remember. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, dude, no, you were crap face.
We're told you were there.
So yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
God Almighty, let me tell you, this
Yeah,
one
ask Anthony Perry if I was there.
dude. Oh, shout outs to Anthony. Speaking
Yeah.
of which, hopefully he's listening to this.
All right, so that leads us to the last game of the season, the frickin' championship, guys.
Woo, Dowie.
I mean, holy cow, we've had a whole season of MLR. How'd this happen?
Seriously.
Right.
Oh,
From
so
April
we got number 1 versus number 2. It's going to be Glendale versus Seattle. The game's being played at Torero Stadium in San Diego. So it's not home for either of them. Actually, yeah, I suppose maybe a little closer for Seattle, but it's not exactly down the road from either place. So let's lead you off. Josh, tell me who you got for this game.
I got Glendale by 5. I realized it was rainy weather when they played, and then Glendale kind of crushed them at home, but I think Seattle's going to step up a little.
Victor.
Okay, guys, because everyone else is going Raptors, someone has to go against the grain, and it has to be the Dominican. It just has to be. So I'm going to go for Seattle Seawolves, winning by 12 points. I don't care if I'm wrong, but someone has to go against the Raptors, and again, it has to be the Dominican. So again, I gotta give it to Seattle. Hopefully, I'm wrong, and it goes to the Raptors because I'd rather have the Raptors win. But no, I'm gonna go for Seattle because if they do win next week, I'm going to gloat about it.
Liam, what you got, man?
I got Glendale by 14. I think it's going to be a much closer game, however, than that score might indicate. But I think this is going to be one of those situations where Glendale might be ahead by 7 for the last 20 minutes of the match, and then they're just going to pull away with one final try and seal the victory. But I don't see any way that Dave Williams is going to let his squad out of here without a victory. I mean, like we've all been saying for months now, this has been Glendale's season to lose all along.
Absolutely, and I'm right there with you. I'm saying Glendale by 7 because I do think that Seattle is not going to let this opportunity pass them by. So I think it's going to come down to the end. I think it's going to be a late try that's going to win it. But I think at the end of the day, Glendale's going to find a way to win because that's what they've done basically all season except for one anomaly in San Diego, which, okay, they're going back to San Diego, but they're not up against the Legion this time. So, plus, I mean, I mentioned this on the Reddit thread when we were talking about this. They've had Seattle's number. They've beat them twice already this season. And you could argue, well, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but if you're better than the other team, you're better than the other team. I mean, Ohio State's beat my University of Iowa Hawkeyes a lot in a row. And it's because they're a better team. So in football, so it just happens.
Yeah, I'm a BC Eagles fan, so I don't like to talk about college football too much.
That's all we got here, man. We got to talk about what we got. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does this for review and preview. Mm-hmm. So let's get some fun stuff if you guys are good with it. I've got a tweet of the week for you. And this one's going to come from
Philly Mac.
One of my favorite scrum halves anyway. Scrum half extraordinaire / coach Phil Mack up at Seattle. And he's talking a little bit about the game and what's coming up. He said, championship bound with the Seattle Seawolves. One more week of hard work to go. Big thanks to Matt Hawkins and the SD Legion for another tough game. Always a huge challenge playing you guys. #MLR Championship, #crunch time. And then what I really liked was that Matt came back, Matt with San Diego came back and said, great to compete the way we did. 2 hard-fought matches this season. Looking forward to many more against you guys. All the very best for the championship. We look forward to hosting you this weekend in San Diego. And what I love, I think, more than anything else is just the reminder of, the gentleman's spirit that comes with this game. These guys, will go out for 80 minutes and just beat on each other, and then they'll pat each other in the back, go have a meal and a drink if there's time afterwards. And, I just feel like for the most part, they genuinely enjoy each other's company, both on and off the field, on and off the pitch. So I don't know. I love that interaction. It's just a quick little glimpse of how great these folks are, and reminder of what's great about rugby. So that's why I picked it for my tweet of the week. So,
well, it was the dandy tweet of the week.
Yeah, there's some feel good shit for you.
Wow.
All right, Victor, let's talk some transactions. What happened? We had a new player on the field for San Diego.
And I briefly mentioned him, which was Joe Peterson, who was playing for the Legion. His first and hopefully not last match with the Legion, depending if he comes back in 2019. Well, in any case, this is a South African player, and he played fullback in the game, and I guess fullback is his main position for the Sharks in Super Rugby, and for the Kamaishi Seawolves in the Top Challenge League, which is second division Japanese rugby. So again, welcome to San Diego, Joe. Hopefully we'll see you in 2019. And another, former player, James English, who's a former English international, I believe. He's from England. Has been named general manager of Rugby United New York. So he played and studied for the University of Southampton before returning to his native London to serve as the head of rugby and long-term athlete development at especially Sports College CCS in London, while he played at the National League level for, I believe, collegiate rugby, if I'm not mistaken. No, actually, National League, I believe there's third division English League. I take that back. English then relocated to Dublin, Ireland, to teach and coach rugby at the famous Blackrock College. Some of you may know Blackrock because we have quite a number of American-born and Irish-born American players. Most important of all of them, probably AJ McGinty. And his father was the principal, or the how do they call them? The something master. I forgot the word. But
Headmaster.
Headmaster. Thank you, Nathan. And that was when Blackrock was playing, and I believe they still are playing at the All-Ireland League. And since moving to the States, English has led rugby and programs of development at the executive director and it was, the executive director for rugby Pennsylvania. He also coached with Monroe College, which is in the Bronx, Yale University's men's rugby team, Adibus, out of Seattle, and the Empire GU All-Stars, which is a conglomeration of teams in the Empire Geographical Union, which New York State is located on, specifically southern, actually the whole of New York State, both north and south. Now, more recently, in 2017, he coached New York Rugby Club, specifically the women's division, to a Women's Premier League National Championship, and currently works as a coach of the USA Under-20s women's team, the Junior All-Americans, ladies. And yeah, those are our two transactions, a player and a general manager coming for 2019.
Well, it's good to see, once again, New York really establish themselves, bringing in some quality staff for that back office and coach general management staff. I'm curious this is just my lack of knowledge speaking here. So what is the role of a general manager compared to the role of a coach?
It's probably what it's Matt Hawkins' role, basically, I believe. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, so just kind of going off what I know about the NFL and kind of what I've heard about what Thierry Dauphin's job is down in Austin, it's a lot of the financial side about. As we know, there's 3 tiers of contracts within the MLR. I believe it's sort of kind of figuring out what your club's plan is in terms of signing players, in terms of bringing in talent. Especially when you have somebody like Thierry Dauphin down in Austin, you see a lot of French players and a French coach coming in because Thierry attracts those sort of people coming from France himself. So yeah, I think it's essentially building the team in the way that that an NFL general manager might do it.
Very interesting. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some news, views, and abuse. Josh, I think you got some stuff for us, my friend.
Yeah, the 2019 MLR season looks to start in January, run through May, June-ish. I think they'll be taking a break for the ARC. I'm not positive on that, and they're gonna with the switch to the June internationals are now becoming the July internationals with the advent of the global rugby calendar. MLR is looking to finish their season before those start. I know a lot of people. Next topic, a lot of people were wondering if there was going to be another California team. There is. Might not be as far north as some of you may like. LA Coast Rugby is putting out an announcement either this week or next week. So maybe, I guess that can be considered the NorCal team for now, even though LA is still considered SoCal.
LA is pretty freaking SoCal.
Yeah, I know.
I think
but it's farther north than San Diego is.
I used to live in LA for a little bit, and they considered NorCal to be like an entirely different country.
It almost is.
Yeah.
Jefferson.
And then, Jefferson. And then Ontario seems to be inching closer and closer towards joining in 2019 as well.
So do you think it's likely that we're going to be seeing 12 teams competing as opposed to the 10, which has been the conservative estimate?
Nah.
No.
Nah, in 2020.
2020 maybe. I think Aaron put out his estimate was 10 next year, 12 the following year, take a break, then 14, take another break, a year or two, and then the breaks are like a year or two, and then 16 by 2023, 2024 maybe.
Well, because as this, I'm just thinking we have Dallas and Rooney apparently confirmed for 2019. Now
Dallas
we have
technically hasn't been confirmed.
I thought they had been more or less confirmed.
It's been speculated, especially by TV announcers, but MLR hasn't said anything. The only ones that have gotten the official stamp of approval, as far as I am aware, Aaron may be more aware, is Rooney. DC is either this year or next year, and then the LA Coast Rugby apparently had the MLR logo included in their stuff, so they may be getting the stamp of approval as well.
Yeah, and this is for everybody's information. The LA Coast stuff is coming off of a Facebook page that they created, and literally just a graphic that says it's happening with their logo next to the MLR logo. And so I'm not discounting it. We're treating it as if it's fact at this point because it lines up with the stuff that we've been hearing. It lines up with the LLC filing that was completed in the state. But, until we hear something official from both the team and the league, of course, anything's possible. I look back at even just a few months before season 1 started, we were still hearing rumors about,
St. Louis,
Minneapolis before everybody from Minneapolis decided to go to San Diego, So anything could happen and anything can change at any point here. So I think we just need to sit back and watch. And I mean, we've got the championship this weekend. I understand folks want to capitalize and promote their teams in light of while the action's going on, but we're gonna know a lot more in 2 months than we do right now today about what next season is going to look like. So I think that's kind of where we're at. So, but it does look like LA Coast is a real thing, and it sounds like Ontario Arrows, at least according to a friend of the show, Brian Ray, it sounds like that's happening as well. So I guess we're just going to see how it shakes out, fellas. Still waiting for Chicago myself. I haven't heard anything recently on them either. So.
Yeah, I thought the Chicago Griffins were supposed to be a thing because they've said on their Facebook as recently as a couple of months ago that they were stepping back from a few tournaments that they regularly attend to focus more on professional endeavors, whatever that means. which I assumed did mean MLR.
It's interesting that you've heard the Griffins because I was hearing the Lions the whole time, so that's interesting.
Chicago Lions, yeah, no, I think that's what I heard as opposed to Griffins.
All right, so with that in mind, I think we're getting time for questions.
Question from Bob.
We're good with that? Questions from Bob. We'll start off. Bab. We'll start off with Bob.
Corey up in Iowa.
That's where animals come from.
Yeah. Noah's Ark landed in Iowa, didn't you know?
Yeah.
6,000 years ago.
I think it was like 2,000 years ago. The Earth's only like 5,000 years old. So.
Yeah, you know what? Last time we talk about this topic.
Yeah, right.
Let's just move on down the road. Moving on. Okay. So questions from Bob. Bob wants to know, what should each team focus on during the short off season this year?
Do not drop damn balls in the line out and have good scrums. That's all I want from you. Do not drop the ball so many damn times. Ball control. That's all I want from all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like you can take that question two different ways. Is what do they focus on in terms of what do they focus on in terms of in the front office? You know, so in terms of the front office, I want them to focus on upping player salaries just so that these players don't have to focus as much about working and they can focus more on training. Because as we said before the broadcast started, that's been a real problem for people down in San Diego, especially. The players have a hard time kind of keeping up with finances and along with training. But then on the field, yeah, fucking ball control lineouts. I'm so sick of sloppy play and play having to stop. It's like football.
And teams will have to figure out what to do with the players they lose. I know Glendale's losing a couple. They'll also have to figure out depth, especially when Eagles call-ups happen. I know Glendale definitely needs another fly half. Sorry, Max, I love you, but I think you're better suited as a fullback. I know Glendale also loses Bryce Campbell and Ben Landry to the championship in England, and I'm not sure what other teams are losing players, but you just have to figure out depth. I know Glendale has depth, but I don't think they have as much as people think they do.
They have an academy system, so you know, while they might not have a ton of depth on paper right now for us to view, I think they don't have a lot of diamonds in the display case, but they have the minds to themselves. So yeah, I think they're good.
Or I guess that's one of the things. The academy systems. I know Glendale is the model that everyone wants to work off of. Houston is working on it. They're farther along than any other teams. Austin kind of has one. They played a couple of U23s. Seattle might be using Atavis as their academy. I think Aaron was using New Orleans Rugby Football Club as theirs.
And the Houston Rugby, Houston Lions or something like that is working with the SaberCats.
Yeah, and then no idea on San Diego and Houston. So get those academies up and running, boys.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, Houston does have an academy that's up and running. Coach/player Matt Truville is the head of that academy system, and he's working tirelessly every single day. You know, I've spoken to both him and Coach Fitz about it. And that's coming along pretty well. And I think I think Houston's going to be coming up with a U23 team pretty soon, and I think that's where you're going to see players like Kieran and Farmer, especially, start to get the minutes that they so desperately need.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, that's all sounds like good ideas. Especially do like the academy, being such a vital part of the development of the game nationally. So, all right. Karma Killer 95. Sorry, I'm being a little dyslexic there. Karma Killer 95 wants to know, if the Ontario Arrows enter the league in 2019, what are the chances Seattle loses their Canadian players and coach? So I want to go ahead and take a run at this one first because we've heard this before, and I don't know. I think
two opposite sides of the country.
Yeah, it may just be a misunderstanding because for starters, most of the Seattle folks that are Canadian nationals are from western part of the country, and so
Vancouver and stuff like that.
Yeah, so saying that a eastern city is suddenly going to gobble everybody up, I mean, it's not like they're going home. They're traveling more than halfway across their own country. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as folks maybe want to think it is. Plus, I mean, they've got a good thing going in Seattle. They're building something that's very special. They're the number 2 team in the league right now. They're up for the championship. Why would they want to give that up to go play for a new upstart team?
This isn't the NBA, because I think once you grow an attachment and a bond with fellow rugby players, it's kind of hard just to up and leave a club. You have players all the time, over in Europe who go back to their smaller professional league teams to finish out their careers because they have that kind of sentimental bond with it. So yeah, I don't see a whole lot of people just up and leaving Seattle, especially after what they've been able to accomplish this year.
Yeah, I mean, Ontario has their own setup, basically. I mean, if let's just say they started the new season immediately after next week, and Ontario was included, I think they'd be fine. They played a couple MLR teams in scrimmages. They played New York. They played Boston. They even started their own under-23 setup already, which is funny because they haven't listed as an MLR team yet. So they want to grow the game in Canada. I think, as far as I'm aware, we're just waiting on approval from Rugby Canada.
Exactly right. And another thing too, guys, if this team from Canada was to open up in British Columbia, up in Vancouver, or around the surrounding area, then you would assume some of the players that are in Seattle probably would go back home. Plus, from Seattle to Vancouver is not really that far away anyway. So that makes sense. The Arrows the team will mostly be for those players located already in the province of Ontario or in the eastern coast part of the country. So you have people from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, up in Newfoundland, God forbid Quebec.
Hey man, I live right below those people. They're fucking weird. All right, I will not be playing with any Quebecois.
Dude, seriously, I don't.
Pas mal.
I don't. There's some people I really don't like messing with, dude. French Canadians, definitely not.
Todos mierda.
You said it, not me. And also, it's not mierda, it's merde in French.
Merde. Oh, yeah, but...
Merde.
Pero estoy hablando español.
Eso, exacto, no francés. So that's another thing. That's another thing too, guys. I really would like, just off a tangent, definitely would like to see a team up in Quebec, in Montreal, obviously. But definitely a team of French Canadians. That would be cool to see, because in women's rugby, there's a bunch of ladies in the Canadian team that come from Quebec, but in the men's side, I don't know what happened. Like, seriously, let's get more French Canadians in rugby.
Let's get a Boston team before we get a fucking Quebec team. All right, I just want to say that.
Of course.
Well,
hey,
and
we already have an Irish. We're good.
Well, and I'll just reiterate that I think the greatest value in having a team in Canada is just bringing Canada into MLR. And so that's going to free up a lot of international spots, because you're suddenly not going to be burning them on Canadians. They're just going to be considered regular players, we assume. Mm-hmm. That's huge. That's huge for the league, because that's a huge talent pool that suddenly we can once again tap into. So very, very valuable. But I just don't think we're going to see a mass exodus north and east if Ontario comes in before Vancouver.
Although we need to be careful, because Donald Trump might be slapping some tariffs on Canadian rugby players after the steal and all that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Are they included in NAFTA? Does rugby talent is that part of the free trade agreement?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't think. Actually, I don't even want to get into the realm of politics, and we're going to get in some dangerous territory here.
We're not gonna get any Mexican players anytime soon. So
I know, right?
I mean, as sad as I am, damn it, dude, I want some Mexicans in MLR sometime soon. Seriously.
I mean, Mexico has a rugby team, if I'm correct, right?
I know they do.
Probably tier 3.
Exactly.
You'll just have to settle for Argentinians right now.
Yeah.
And Chileans. I forgot about Chile.
And Uruguayans whenever they want to leave their damn country, but dude, I want some Mexican guys to go up.
What about your people from tu país? What about the Dominicans? Where are they all at playing rugby?
Well, most of us are the ones that are here in the States and here in the East Coast. You got a couple of Dominican American guys that I'm sure would definitely love to play in MLR, and I actually got a couple of the guys from the Dominican team that have hit me up with ideas of coming to New York City for the Rooney practice thing coming up. But we'll see. Really depends on them.
All right. Next question is coming from Greetings ADM. And Greetings wants to know, seeing as the two favorites are in the championship game, that's Seattle and Glendale, which of these teams is the Yankees and which is the Patriots?
I mean, if we're going off teams, probably Glendale.
Yeah.
If we're going off fans, Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? Because to me that means different things as who's the Patriots and who's the Yankees.
To me, those are the same thing in two different sports.
Well, one is just the most pristine winning culture of any sport ever, and the other is just grimy guys wearing gray with no beards and from New York. Wow. Is Dan watching this?
I thought you were talking about the Patriots for a moment. I just said that.
No.
Nah.
Winning culture. It's Glendale, just because they technically have been around for 10 years, and most of these teams are virtual pop-ups. If you had to have a team to compare to for Seattle, I'd
Bills
say
Mafia.
I'd say the Vegas Golden Knights.
Wow. No, definitely. I wouldn't compare them to Vegas Golden Knights at all. I think Vegas actually has like an identity, especially considering the tragedy that happened there. Like with the shooting, they were actually playing for something. Whereas, I think, Seattle, their identity was just being loud and disrespectful to the kicker, and I think that kind of is a great parallel to the to Buffalo Bills or to Baltimore Ravens fans. They're just loud and stupid for the sake of being it.
Or Dallas Cowboys fans.
I can't disrespect Cowboys fans too much. I got a couple friends who root for the silver and blue. But
see, my issue is I can't disrespect them, but I can't because one of the receivers who went to the same college I did is now with the Cowboys, but I also grew up a Redskins fan. So
there Redskins fans exist.
Yes.
I've honestly never met anybody who's like, I'm a Redskins fan. It's just like cool. Like it's like being like, I'm like, oh, water's my favorite drink. It's just like cool.
Well, I mean, if you ask me what teams I root for, I'll tell you I root for the Redskins and the Broncos. But I mean, I don't go around saying it.
Yeah.
Especially with the Redskins, because they would like to be called Native Americans, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
All right. Last question of the night comes from Munster CR37. Wonder what kind of fellow that is. Now, this is actually one that I've had bouncing around in my head for a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys here. Do you think MLR could become an appealing launching off point for internationals starting out their career before going to a top-tier competition?
I mean, I think it could. I mean, look at Pro did it for, I think, one or two players. I mean, Don Waldock went. I mean, he kind of he had a shot in I forget what league, came over to play for Ohio and then got another shot. I think he's done well. I haven't really kept up, but I think it honestly can be. I don't think it could be. I honestly think it could be a mix of that, and it could be a mix of the MLS retirement league. I know we have Ben Foden is coming for Rooney next year. I'm not. I honestly think it will be a mix of both. I think it'll be a mix of kicking off points, which, in all honesty, for the first couple of years, that might not be that bad.
I agree as well with Josh. Definitely great example with Dominic Wondok when he left. I believe he was playing for Wasp, I want to say. And then he played for the Ohio Aviators, and from there ended up with the Newcastle Falcons, and for the Falcons, for whatever reason, ended up going to Oxford University and play for that team. So, and I believe he's still there too. So good for him. But yeah, quite a number of guys actually came. You also had, and I'm surprised if you guys know him, Robbie Shaw, who used to play for the U.S. team. He, I believe, was playing in England, came to the States, and then after that went back to England, and I believe he's playing now with it's not Richmond because that's Ronnie McLean. I forgot he's playing in the championship team, but yeah, he also sort of launched a little higher by playing in PRO, and of course, I mean, same thing's gonna be in Major League Rugby again. You already have Campbell and Landry. I mean, they didn't really start it there technically, but they were able to show off their skills, and hey, that they got good payments right there with both London Irish and Ealing respectively. So that's cool.
What do you guys think the chances that Sonny Bill Williams would ever come to the U.S. to finish his career?
High, if the money's there. I'm pretty sure.
So do you think it would have to be kind of like the LA Galaxy offering David Beckham a boatload of cash to come over and play for that one season?
There you go, pretty much. Once they put the player cap rule thing that they have, yeah, there should be.
Who would be that team? Do you think to shell out the cash? Do you think it would be like the LA Coastal Rugby, or do you think Houston? Yeah, definitely.
I think those are the two deepest teams in the league financially.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, those definitely those two. But yeah, but I mean the thing is, rugby is not one of those sports where you have this one particular top-notch player that everyone goes gaga for. I mean, of course there are players like that, but not at the same level as association football or soccer.
Yeah, no, it's not a superstar sport, really.
Yeah, that's exactly it, because I mean it's a team sport rather than a team sport that puts emphasis on individuals. And if you don't believe me, just look what happens whenever Cristiano Ronaldo plays, that son of a bitch. But the less we talk about that bastard, the better. I don't like Portugal.
Neymar.
Or Neymar. Thank you. I don't like Portuguese speaking people. Let's just put it that way.
Oh shit!
I just can't.
Wow.
Probably because I'm a Spanish speaker.
So you've successfully thrown shade at both the French speakers and the Portuguese speakers tonight.
Dude, you're gonna see Paul hitting up Brian. Say, Brian, tell Victor that him and I have a problem now.
Dude,
yo, I'm kidding, by the way. Paul,
tu boca tiene calor ahora.
Mucho. No, hey Paul, if you ever listen to this, you're a New Zealander, but I know you've been living in Brazil for years. It's okay, bro. I still love you, even if you live down in that place. But it's cool, no problem. No. But again, it's just a Portuguese. Brazilians are alright, but it's Portuguese. A bunch of know-it-alls, apparently. It's cool.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up the mild racism portion of the show. And
yeah,
right.
Wow.
I make one Trump comment, and next thing you know.
By the way, I want to say that's not racism, that's prejudice. They're very different things. Actually, no, because I'm brown. Very, very different things.
Very true.
Fair. I'll let you speak to that one, because I just,
very different.
That you have better
Victor, you're the only one that can speak to that. So,
so yeah, there definitely is prejudice.
Somos muy blanco.
No joke, but that's what's the point.
No, tú eres muy moreno, pero somos blanco.
Eso. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Exacto. Any final thoughts, by the way?
Yeah, with that, let's go ahead and shift on to the end of the show. I've got one final thought. We didn't get a chance to really respond to much, but Shane, thank you so much for listening. I see you over in the comment section of YouTube.
Hi, Shane.
Yeah, it's great to have you in the comments. So thanks for being there, and hit us up on Twitter if you want to keep talking. We're a lot more active there than when I'm co-hosting and can't get to the comment section. So thanks for listening, man. We appreciate it. That's my final thought. Anybody else got anything else going on?
Well, guys, it's looking to be a great final game for Major League Rugby. I assume next week, not only we're going to talk about the match and how things went, but I assume we're also going to have a review of the season, right, Corey? I assume. I mean, I'm just throwing ideas. I don't know if
sounds like a great idea. Let's do that.
Okay. I mean, like a short review about things that we liked and didn't like of the 2018 Major League Rugby season. So yeah, something to talk about next week. Because I mean, I assume next week's episode is going to be short because we only have one match to talk about.
Well, you'd think that, wouldn't you?
We'll have plenty of analysis, no doubt. So yeah, we definitely have that to look forward to. So Saturday can't come quick enough.
Beautiful. Okay,
Victor,
so
take us home, my friend.
Yes.
I think we're done.
We're good. Well, guys, and with that, we have come to the end of episode 43 of the Major League Rugby podcast. Thank you for joining us, especially those like Shay Rayner that did so. Thanks again, Shane. We appreciate you being with us live through YouTube, specifically at Earful of Dirt podcast, which is the name of our channel. Make sure to subscribe and keep up with our live shows that happen every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Also, make sure to follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of them at Earful of Dirt. Earful with one L, not two, because someone got confused a couple of days ago asking me about that. Only one L. And of course, make sure to look for our audio podcast if you're not watching the video right now on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Player FM, Acast, hopefully one of these days in iBooks, Corey, and also also of course in SoundCloud. That's where we are right now. By the way, guys, hopefully things were gonna go well with SoundCloud. Apparently, Germans have been having problems, that they've been losing money. So if something happens and SoundCloud dies, no worries. We're going to find another server. Okay, we should be good. Just to let you guys know. And finally, guys, make sure to call us at our voicemail. Call us our phone number so you could drop us a message on our voicemail. Excuse me. The number is 1-720-600-2679. And with that, we'll see you guys next week again to talk about the last game of Major League Rugby. So once again, guys, Victor is my name. Again, that was Corey, Josh, and Liam. Hopefully, Aaron will be back next week. Again, people have been asking me about, where's Daniel Brown? He's again busy man. Hopefully, we'll see him before the end of the season. But it really all depends on him. He's been really busy.
He's a Mets fan. He has to disappear for these last couple of months.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, the Mets have been doing horribly. The bottom of the table right now. We're not going to talk much about that. So seriously. Awesome. Well, guys, we'll see you next week. Have a great night. Buenas noches.